So I want to introduce Gerri Griswold. We're going to be talking tonight about the
Yeah.
thylacine, or the Tasmanian tiger. And Gerri is going to give us a lot of information about that. So we're going to be going almost all the way across the world to Australia and then Tasmania. And I hope you all enjoy it. And so we're going to get started now. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you so much. I'm so sad that we don't get to chit chat tonight. It's something I really look forward to. It's the show before the show. But again, I want to thank Nancy and the Milford Library for having me. And it's a rather depressing series of programs that we've been discussing all of these extinct species. But it's such an important message too. And we're going to end the series tonight with, I think, one of the most fascinating animals that has ever inhabited our planet. Of course, it's no longer with us anymore, the thylacine. It's also known as the Tasmanian wolf or the Tasmanian tiger. Very, very dog-like animal, and yet absolutely no relationship to a dog whatsoever. I want to move all of you guys out of my way, even though you're beautiful. I'm going to put you down here so I can have my crib notes in front of me. So it's funny because I've given this program a few times and I've read quite a bit about this animal, but it's such a weird name, thylacine. It sounds like, a drug that you would get for a rash or something. I don't know, something you would take. I have to take my thylacine before I go to bed at night or I won't sleep. What does the name thylacine mean? I never really thought about it until somebody said, what does thylacine mean? I was like, my God, why didn't I ever look into that? But originally, this animal, thylacine, was placed in a genus called, my Latin will be awful, but bear with me, Didelphis, which had been created by Linnaeus, of course, who came around with a taxonomic chart and put every living thing on our planet into groups. You belong here, you belong here, you belong here, like primates, blah, 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 blah. You probably all know that. So he put them in with American opossums, describing this creature as a dog-headed opossum. And the common name derives directly from the genus name, originally from the Greek, thylakos, which means pouch or sack. So basically, this animal is a dog-headed pouch animal, something like that. That's what the word thylacine means. But first, how did I get involved in this thing? And for those of you that have been following along with the series, of course, my excuse me, my hero is Errol Fuller, and back in 2015, I was terribly sick, sick in bed for several months. And of course, what does a person do when they're sick in bed for several months, like not knowing whether they're going to live or die? Read about extinct species. Good old Gerri. Just put that shroud of black on and forage on and continue on. And it's because I've always been interested in this topic. But when I was sick, I started developing this series for White Memorial. And I found this author, Errol Fuller. Please go on his website and check him out, errolfuller.com. And he's this wonderful Englishman who is primarily an artist. He's made his living by being an artist. And he said he paints a disreputable subject matter like snooker, a type of pool, and boxing. And this is how Errol's made his living. But he happens to be also the world's foremost authority on extinct species. And Errol also happens, yes, I'm on a first name basis now. This is how much I fell into this rabbit hole with Errol Fuller. He's also owns the biggest collection of Victorian taxidermy in the world. Some incredible things, including bits and pieces of the animals that we have talked about through this series. So I started buying his books like crazy, because when you're really sick and you're up in the middle of the night because you can't sleep, you just go on Amazon and buy everything that isn't bolted down. Blenders, and Lord knows how much money I spent on Amazon then, but I bought every single one of these books and probably some more. And then a friend of mine said, I love him because he's an artist, and his books not only are I have some right by me because I usually have, Errol Fuller's stuff by me. This is his book on the dodo. Let me pull the passenger pigeon out. His books not only are absolutely stunning, he's an artist. He he puts a book together differently than a stuffy scientist would. He makes science very easy to understand, and through his extensive research on these topics, he puts together these books that are just works of art. So my friend Allison forced me to send him a fan mail. No, I'm not going to bother with this man. He's not going to write back to me, blah, 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 blah. And sure enough, within, I'm not kidding you, 15 minutes of the first email, Errol Fuller had written me back. And we started a pen pal thing going on. And then really turned into a friendship, an acquaintance. Sadly, I've never met him, and I hope to get to England before sooner rather than later, so that I can meet him. But every single time I've asked Errol for something, some help about something, he's been so giving and so generous. This is a man that has written books with Sir David Attenborough, Richard Attenborough, David Attenborough, not Richard. Richard's the movie maker. And sorry, I've been up since 4. And as well as numerous other things. He speaks at the American Museum of Natural History. And yet, when I email Errol, I hear from him almost immediately whatever it is I need, including writing cover stories for White Memorial. So just, once again, a long-winded story that takes me into this realm of the thylacine. And Errol actually is going to be doing a virtual program for us at White Memorial on March 26th, which I'm calling Show and Tell with Errol Fuller, where he is going to call, I don't know, maybe a dozen pieces from his collection, and we're going to talk about them. So I hope that you'll join us at White Memorial on March 26th. You can look at our website, whitememorialcc.org, and find out about that. So, even when you're really sick, some good things can happen, and certainly was me meeting Errol Fuller has just embellished and inspired me to continue on this topic and learn more and more and more about extinct species. Check him out. Best guy in the world. Such a super guy. So here he is, the thylacine, roughly translated pouch dog with a wolf's head. This is a painting by a Greek illustrator, Panchalis Dougalis, and he lives in Germany. Beautiful painting of a thylacine. So their prehistoric relatives roamed the earth during the Miocene period. That's about 12 to 20 million years ago. And of course, they were much bigger then. And everybody thinks they're related to a wolf. One of their popular names is the Tasmanian Wolf. And these are actually both, the slide Errol gave me. These are in his collection. On the left is a wolf skull, and on the right is a thylacine skull. And you have to look very, very closely to find some differences in these two. They both had massive jaws. They were both carnivorous creatures. They are very powerful jaws, and that ridge at the top of the skull towards the back, that ridge is where all of this muscle is attached. And that's why when a dog bites down on something, it bites hard and it doesn't let go, because it's got all of these muscles working in its favor. Just in the sharp canine teeth, the sharp molars, we're omnivores. If you feel your teeth, wash your hands first. If you feel the back of your teeth, we've got these crushing molars. That's like what a porcupine has. They're herbivores. We're omnivores. So we've got these little canine teeth for some chewing some meat. But any canine has very sharp molars. Those are for ripping and tearing meat. But very, very little difference here. Yet this animal has nothing to do with a dog or canine of any sort. So here's a comparison of the thylacine and a gray wolf. And once again, next to their skulls. I mean, if you look closely at the thylacine's teeth, his molars aren't quite as pointed as a wolf's. On the other hand, those could be old teeth too, because those teeth will wear down with time. Is he a tiger? Is he a feline? No, he's not a tiger even. He's got a few stripes. He's got 17 stripes on his back. But he's definitely not related to any kind of feline. If anything, I would put this animal more closely in with a canine. I wonder if you guys know who he's related to. So he's a marsupial. He is related to our North American opossum. The North American opossum is the only marsupial in North America. And we see these similarities in their skulls, and there are other similarities as well. This is something called convergent evolution. It's when different organisms independently evolve similar traits. So biologists call this process when two organisms share characteristics that they didn't jointly inherit from a common ancestor. It's called convergent evolution. So this is a super illustration of placental mammals because marsupials are born. They're okay. A marsupial is born in a placenta, but it comes out when it's born and goes into a pouch. Animals that and when it is born, it's extremely tiny. Like for example, I mean hardly developed at all, as opposed to placental mammals that are born, even though they need their mothers. Like a porcupine is fine on its own almost a couple of hours after it's born. We certainly know about our own species. But with a marsupial, it's born in a placenta. It has a placenta. But when it's born, like a North American opossum, a Virginia opossum they're called, is actually the size of a pea. And it's born that way, and it somehow crawls into its mother's pouch, and her nipples are these long straws. Can we talk about nipples or their children here tonight? Because this is the most fascinating thing. And that's why it's so difficult to do wildlife rehabilitation on a marsupial, because they're used to these big straws that are going down their throats. So a lot of the development of marsupials is actually in the pouch. So that's what a thylacine is. We can look at a wolf and say it looks like a Tasmanian wolf or a thylacine. We can look at a bobcat and say it looks similar to this Tasmanian tiger cat. I mean, look at these moles. Marsupial mole, the numbat, their version of an anteater. All of these animals have this convergent evolution where they're very, very similar to a placental mammal, yet they're completely different. And I think that is so unbelievably cool. Convergent evolution. That'll be your Jeopardy question. So close to 70% of the 334 extant species of marsupials occur on the Australian continent. Australia is ground zero for marsupials, and nearby islands as well, like New Guinea and Tasmania, of course. Tasmania was actually once attached to Australia, and with global warming during one of the ice ages, it became separated, and now it's, of course, a very big island. The remaining 30% of marsupials are found in the Americas, primarily in South America, 13 in Central America, and then just that one, our Virginia opossum, who everybody thinks is related to a rat. He is the only marsupial in North America. Pretty cool. Lots of cute faces there, and interesting hands. Kangaroos, opossums, Tasmanian devils, they might differ dramatically in looks and location, but they share the same family tree. So researchers have argued for years about how these marsupials evolved and spread across the world. So now a new study of jumping genes may finally have solved the mystery. So for more than 300 marsupial species living in the Americas and Australia, they are famous for their pouches, built-in baby carriers, where they keep and feed their young. And they're the closest kin of placental mammals, such as humans. But they branched off and formed their own little group 130 million years ago. They settled predominantly in South America and Australia, which at that time were part of a supercontinent called Gondwana. So at one point, those two continents were tucked in together, just as there was Pangea when Africa was hooked up to South America and to us in Europe, and it was all one thing and just broke apart. And you know, it's beyond me that people even know this stuff. So the closest living relatives of the Tasmanian tiger today are the Tasmanian devil and the numbat. So I tell you I obsess about things, and I totally obsess about this. So in September, I moved to a new place, and my entire bathroom is decorated with extinct species and strange animals like this. And I actually bought this plate this print to hang in my bathroom. So it doesn't have the thylacine in it, but it does have the numbat. All these animals are still around today, but I thought it would be really cool hanging on my bathroom wall. And then I have a lot of other really cool old pieces, prints of thylacines and great auks and stuff like that, and passenger pigeons I'm looking for. It's really tough to find passenger pigeons, something you can afford to buy. But there you go, Gerri's just down the rabbit hole. And there's more you'll learn during the program. So modern history records the thylacine as being native to Tasmania, but scientists believe, and they actually know it was once widespread throughout mainland Australia, Tasmania, and even Papua New Guinea. Tasmania and Australia were connected. The sea level rising turned Tasmania into an island. And Tasmanian tiger lived in dry eucalyptus forests, wetlands, and grasslands in continental Australia, Tasmania, and New Guinea, and it went extinct in mainland Australia about 2,000 years ago due to competitions from the dingo, the wild dog, that was also an introduced species, but a much bigger animal, and it was too much competition for the thylacine, so the thylacine just disappeared. So once again, we find ourselves with an animal that is living on an island. It's the only place in the world where it exists. Mauritius, the only place in the world for the dodo. The great auk had so few places where it could breed. The passenger pigeon, even though North America is a big continent, still it is relegated to just one place. And wherever you have animals that can only live in one place, then they're susceptible. They're definitely susceptible. And this is what happens to all of them. The original coat of arms for Tasmania is rarely seen today, actually. It's been replaced by the Tasmanian government logo. I'll show this to you in a bit. The motto on the Tasmanian coat of arms with thylacine supporters is "fruitful and faithful." The arms was proclaimed in 1919, only 10 years after the government bounty on the species was revoked. Yeah, there was a bounty. There's another big problem with their disappearance. There's a considerable irony in this alignment of the thylacine and the governance of Tasmania, because there were few moves to protect the animal until its members were close to extinction. And it's been suggested that remorse motivated the choices of thylacines for the state's coat of arms, but there's no evidence to support the theory. I completely buy into it, because this animal is so prevalent. There is so much guilt about what we did to this animal. It is everywhere in coats of arms, the cricket teams, their license plates, postage stamps, currencies. I mean, everything. This animal appears now, and that is the ultimate guilt. I mean, maybe the same as the dodo bird as well. That appears in the similar way in Mauritius. So the proclamation of the arms in 1919 caused minimal comment in local newspapers. Two thylacines hold the shield on which symbols of the state's prosperity were arranged, including a ram standing for the pastoral industry that hastened the thylacines' demise, which is so ironic. And to fulfill their emblematic function, the form of the thylacines is distorted to convey a power and authority they had never held after European settlement of the island. I mean, they were just trash. Everybody hated them. They're going to kill all of our chickens. They're going to kill all of our sheep. Let's get rid of these animals. Let's just kill them. You know, we don't like them. They're going to kill everything. So the Tasmanian government logo this is what they're using today. It was originally designed for tourism in 1996 by Ian Kidd, but it was soon used for all government departments, so you don't see the coat of arms that much anymore. It's a visualization of the positioning statement, "Discover your natural state," and can now be seen on car license plates, on the doors of government offices, printed on tourist brochures and government reports, and adorning even their parliament buildings. Guilt, 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 guilt. This is what their license plates look like. So for ancient and native peoples, the main evidence for the belief that, is the presence of the thylacine like animals in Aboriginal rock art from northern Australia, including the Kimberley region of Western Australia and Upper East Alligator region of Death Adder Creek and Cadell River crossing into the Northern Territory. Many thylacine bones have been found in mainland Australia, and some of these bones have been dated at about 2,200 years of age. And although they can't be sure what happened to the thylacines of Australia and Papua New Guinea, scientists really do suspect that it was competition for food. Predators like the dingo that allowed this animal to just completely vanish from Australia and Papua New Guinea. But there they are, in plain sight in Aboriginal art. In 1808 was the first official description of Van Diemen's Land, and Van Diemen's Land was the old word for Tasmania. So it was about the size of a medium-sized dog, like my dog Bradley. He weighs 70 pounds. It was about 71 inches long. Its tail was up to 21 inches long. It would have about a 23-inch, it would be 23 inches tall and could be up to about 66 pounds in weight. And so, medium-sized dog. It was gray and brown in color with 16 black or brown stripes on its back, and it had the same shape as a dog. But the back, the rump, and the tail were more like a kangaroo. And you will see in that picture in the upper right, very similar to the way kangaroos' feet are constructed and the way kangaroo is built, and its tail being used as a prop as well. It was a very stiff tail. The animal had very short legs, teeth like a dog, but with more incisor teeth than molars, and the thylacine was able to open its mouth, this is crazy, about 120 degrees. The thylacine was nocturnal, a night hunting animal, and they ate wallabies and rats and birds and echidnas, that's an interesting animal with spines on it, rabbits, and sheep, occasionally, but rarely they would eat sheep. The thylacines were marsupials, which means the female carried the babies in the pouch, and their pouch opened in the rear, which is kind of interesting. Again, this is a really super illustration for it. It was one of only 2 marsupials to have a pouch in both sexes also, the other being a South American water opossum, or a yak pot was the name. In the male, the pouch served in protecting its external genitalia. So another very interesting feature about them. So it was wiped out in Australia 3,000, 2,000 years ago. Not even remotely related to a dog. Wombats are the cutest things. Oh my goodness, they're related to that. But it had the head of a meat eater, and it was. Yeah, it was the largest carnivorous Australian marsupial to survive into the modern era. Just a comparison between the back of a thylacine and the back of a canine. Very, very different if you look very closely. The hindquarters really tell it all. Very different than a dog. As I see stuff in it. Yeah, Nancy saw the pouches backwards. Yep, very interesting. So this is the 120-degree gape. They had this huge gape and a powerful bite. And there was this one account, a cornered thylacine was fighting a dog, and it bit off, this is again an account, bit off the top of the dog's skull with a single snap. This was something that was reported in 1926. The Wild Animals of Australasia, Lesuth and Burrell. And again, look at that gape. Isn't that incredible? And every single one of them had the same amount of stripes. I said 17. It is 16 stripes. I can understand how that could bite off the head of something. But this animal disappeared in modern times, and yet we don't know what it sounds like. There were no recordings of the last Tasmanian tiger that died in a zoo in Hobart in Tasmania in the 30s. But we do have people who had written about them. And one of them was John Gould. And John Gould is an Englishman. He said in 1860 that the thylacine had a wheezing cry. And Gould was very famous for the shower curtain that I have in my bathroom now. Don't judge. I have a thylacine shower curtain, and it has a John Gould print. on it. You'll see that print during the program. So that's what he said. J. Hunt, 1852, said that they occasionally utter a low, smothered bark. And in 1937, the Circular Head Chronicle, dated October 6, says that the thylacine has a sharp bark, like a pup of 7 or 8 weeks old. William George Fitzgerald, he was a prospector. He said the tiger's growl is a soft, low whistle. When hunting, the tiger gives an occasional yelp similar to that of the Australian dingo on a chase, but that's about their only similarity. When calling its mate, the tiger gives a blood-curdling squeal, similar to the loud neighing of a horse. And yet, even though this animal did last into modern times, we still don't have recordings of its voice. It's incredible. But somebody did this chart, which is just amazing. You can just peruse this. Do I have John Gould's picture up here flanking this at all? No, I don't have his here. But again, there are these lists of the green is you're fine, you're safe. The hissing, the yellow is, like kind of beware. And then the red, these are all the threatening and creepy ones. That means that something bad is going to happen. He's going to, threaten you or growl at you or bite you, or he's warning you about his territory. So we know this much, but nobody ever recorded them. I guess by the time we were able to record sound, and this animal isn't very vocal at all, really, there were only a few of them left. But at least we have this. And then their footprints are very, very interesting as well, because unlike other local animals like foxes and wombats and Tasmanian devils, the Tasmanian tiger had a very large main foot pad and 4 small toe pads aligned in almost perfectly straight line. The front paws had 5 toes, while the back paws had 4 toes. And it is a unique footprint that has launched a new generation of researchers to look for living Tasmanian tigers. Another characteristic of the thylacine feet is the axis of its toes. So there are a lot of people that still believe, and Tasmania is a huge island. They're not looking for these animals anywhere else, but there are, Bigfoot hunters. There are still people that truly believe that this animal is still around in Tasmania. And it's interesting because of all the animals we've talked about in this series. I suppose I could possibly buy the fact that this animal is still around, or even if it were cloned, even though I think that's an egotistical thing for us to do. This animal might be able to survive in the wild if we're just left alone. The great auk, maybe. The passenger pigeon, absolutely not. The dodo bird, absolutely not. They would never survive. They could never survive. So I still don't believe there are any of these animals left. And of course, all of the video footage that you see of people that had seen them, it's all really blurry, and it's like Bigfoot kind of stuff. But very, very interesting nonetheless. It's really funny because the upper right slide and that front foot on the left, that is so much like the footprint of our Virginia opossum. They've got the cutest little feet. So it's believed to have relied on sight and sound while hunting. There were earlier claims that this was an animal that was driven by scent, but it's not a dog. Canines have this wicked, intense sense of smell, but this isn't a canine. So they do believe it was sight and sound that these animals use for hunting. Nocturnal, they were active mostly at night or at dusk, but primarily nocturnal. This is kind of funny because they're chasing emus here, and I don't know, that I'm not so sure I would be chasing an emu if I were thylacine. They can really kick hard. I mean, a kangaroo can too, but a wallaby is a smaller kangaroo. I don't know who's calling me, but I find it so annoying. I'm glad my phone's across the room. The Tasmanian tiger was also an apex predator, and it's interesting because we've got a slide coming up, but I'll tell you the story now. I was in New York in the middle of December of last year to go to the American Museum of Natural History so I could visit their thylacine that they had on display. And it was off on a tour of an extreme mammals tour of the United States with other apex predators. I was fit to be tied. The great auk was locked in a room that was being used for COVID testing. I saw Labrador duck and passenger pigeons, and that was great. But I was fit to be tied because I really wanted to see the thylacine. Anyway, it was an apex predator and hunted wallabies and kangaroos, yes, as well as birds, and they were believed to be ambush predators, and they would prefer to hunt mostly at night. In the 1800s, the Tasmanian tiger was wrongly persecuted for attacking livestock such as chickens and sheep, and the rising bounties led to their eventual extinction. So really, this animal didn't have much to do. I'm sure it must have taken a sheep or a chicken once in a while. But wait till you hear the campaign to eradicate this animal. It was worse than any of the other animals that we talked about because it was just so deliberate. And the passenger pigeon was just idiocy, and the dodo it was idiocy, and the great auk it was idiocy. This was a deliberate attack on this animal to annihilate it, and they succeeded. And this is what I find most heart-wrenching about this. A bunch of lies that led to a panic and people being offered money led to the extinction of this animal. That's an echidna. I mentioned it before, that he would eat an echidna. They have spiky little things on them. Not quite like a porcupine, more like a hedgehog. But that is a insectivorous mammal. But he would eat an echidna, probably go under the underside, and there were no spikes under there. So the thylacine hunted singly or in pairs. It wasn't like packs like coyotes often do or wolves often do. And they ate small rodents as well. I think I had the other side, there were rats. They were reported to prey on sheep and poultry, but it really wasn't true. Very much exaggerated. And foxes and dingoes would hunt emus, but a thylacine really wasn't going to hunt an emu. They really weren't big enough to take down an emu. I suppose if the emu were really sick, it was one thing. But there are all sorts of crazy looking illustrations on the internet. God bless the internet soul. This is thylacine. Look at his, and again, that jaw gaping that way would come in quite handy when you're killing a Tasmanian devil, and that's what he's eating there. But this one is the most ridiculous picture I've ever seen in my life. Well, one of them, anyway. I don't know if you know how big a duck-billed platypus is, but it's really tiny. I mean, it's only about this big. It's small. And here is something that is the size of a Labrador retriever taking down a platypus that is bigger than it. It's just, what a treasure. I wish I owned that print. I mean, that is really ridiculous. But once again, how exaggerated it was. And this animal is just such a villain. He's going to kill the platypus. Really bad proportions. Even if it were a Thylacine pup. A Thylacine pup, no. This is just wrong. So this is a 1902 painting by Joseph Gleason. It depicts a Thylacine mother with 3 cubs, including one in her pouch. You see his little tail coming out of there. And this is as they appeared on arrival at the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. Our study sampled hairs from the mother and one of the cubs, and the females had 4 teats but usually had 2 to 3 pups, and they're very short-lived animals. Marsupials do not live that long. Our opossums can only live really for a couple of years. So even though this is a bigger marsupial, I don't imagine this animal lived more than 4 or 5 years. This is one of the highest quality photographs of thylacines, again taken of the animals that were at the National Zoo in Washington. And these are 2 of the surviving offspring that were in that painting before, 2 or 3 years after the arrival at the zoo. One of these animals is a specimen sequenced for a cloning study from the hairs that they extracted. So the thylacine is seen bred once a year, with the young being carried in the mother's backward-facing pouch and had 4 teats. About 6 to 8 months, the young, too big for the pouch, were left alone in a sheltered place while the mother went out to find food. This is a photograph from the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery of a mother and 3 young thylacines. They're called joeys, pictured around 1910 in the Beaumaris Zoo in Hobart, Tasmania. And obviously, they will have more young if they're fed well. So this is a bigger clutch, probably 2 to 3. But if there's one with 4, it means they're being fed more so that she can produce more milk for her young. Bad taxidermy. 1884, 1894, Buckland and Spring Bay mother and pups photo. This is unbelievable. This is one of 2 known pictures that depicts the only known taxidermy of a mother and her joeys. And the specimens were donated by, this is crazy, William Turvey, then treasurer of the, get this, Buckland and Spring Bay Tiger and Eagle Extermination Association. Says it all, doesn't it? And here is the other photograph. Looks like they have some Tasmanian devils in there on the right and the thylacines on the left. This is a Thylacine pup or a joey preserved in alcohol. It died in 1909. And I believe they can extract DNA from this animal too if they wanted to. And this is Thylacine pup development in the pouch. So from A all the way to E, F. I mean, if an opossum is the size of a pea when it's born, these little guys must be, I bet they were probably this big, maybe. Think about that. Maybe even a little bit smaller. Yeah, I'd say smaller. The demise, I mean, we've already kind of saw it coming. This is 1869 photograph, William George Weaver. Very proud of his kill. You couldn't eat them. I mean, it's at least they were trying to eat the dodo, and they ate the great auk, and they kind of used it, and they kind of used the passenger pigeon for their benefit. But the thylacine, no. So this is the Australian dingo. It was believed to arrive in Australia from Asia about 3,500 years ago. And the thylacine in Australia, as I said before, disappeared about 2,000 years ago because of competition from this big dog. Also, and hunting from European settlers led to its demise as well. It's a comparison picture. And again, a thylacine can't, with those short legs, it cannot outrun a dingo. This next series, you're going to flip over this. I told you it was just a witch hunt, an absolute witch hunt. So here is a picture of a thylacine that killed a chicken. And this was apparently put in, and I can't remember the date on this. 1921, Gerri. Duh. So 1921. It was put in a newspaper, and this is, it's like, get rid of these animals. They're killing all of our chickens. They're going to kill our sheep. What in the world? We've got to get rid of this animal. And if you pan out, this is what it was. I've never seen such a witch hunt. I've never, you cannot compare this to any of the other lectures that I've done. Just an absolute witch hunt based on lies. And there's some that say that that is actually a taxidermy specimen. I don't know. I read in one place that it possibly was a taxidermy specimen that was wired so you could move its head around, because in these photographs, you can see how they're not really great photos, but he looks pretty stiff. But this is what they did to this animal. This was a witch hunt. This is just makes no sense to me. So they started bounty hunting. and killing them, and killing them, and killing them, and killing their pups, and collecting money for killing them. It just went on and on and on. They massacred these animals between 1830 and 1909. Just an absolute massacre on them. This is a photo that was taken in 1830. So 1830 to 1910, I think there was a bounty put on them in Tasmania, followed by the Tasmanian government in 1888. So between 1888 and 1912, more than 2,000 were killed. My notes are bad on this. So there was just an all-out war on this animal. So between 1888 and 1912, 2,000 animals were killed. And this is an incredible chart that just depicts how quickly it happened. Just look at that drop down to 1910. There's nothing else for your bounty. Sorry, you've killed them all. And how swiftly, once again, the extinction of a species happens. Look at this. 30 years. Poof. Gone. Unbelievable. Here is an illustration of a tiger trap from 1823. I think guns were probably easier. I don't know what they were trapping them for, unless they were to sell them to zoos. 1823 now. They weren't in zoological gardens at that point. So this is a Tasmanian farmer, Wilfred Batty, posing with a Thylacine shot on his property in 1930. God, my eyesight's terrible. I really need to go to the doctor. Now thought to be the last Tasmanian tiger in the wild. So then what happens? They're in zoos, in the Hobart Zoological Gardens. Among the native birds and animals at Hobart is the unique Marsupial wolf, the only animal of its species in captivity in the world. And there were some of these animals that were in London and some that were in Washington, D.C., and I'm sure there were some in zoos in other places around the world. But, of course, none of them survived, and there obviously was a successful breeding program for them. Again, in 30 years, they were pretty much wiped out, and it was too little too late. And it all ended up on the shoulders of this poor creature, Benjamin. So on a blue Monday of September 7th, 1936, the world sadly lost the last member of this animal species. His name was Benjamin, and he had previously spent 3 years in captivity at the Hobart Zoo in Tasmania. Since then, numerous reports of sightings of the Tasmanian tiger elsewhere in Tasmania followed, but so many that the thylacine is now associated with being an extinct animal that is the most number of post-extinction reports of sightings. So on a freezing night in 1936, he was locked out of his shelter by a closed door by mistake, forcing him to bed down on the enclosure's concrete slab. And the newspapers reported that that at the time the animal had been in splendid health and condition, but unfortunately contracted a chill during the recent spell of cold weather. So on September 7th, 1936, Benjamin was found dead in his enclosure, just 2 months after the species was offered government protection. I mean, they were gone then, and then, it's always too little too late. So September 7th in Australia is Threatened Species Day. Every single year they celebrate all of these animals, that not just Benjamin, the Tasmanian tiger, but all of the animals around the world that have fallen prey to human, idiocy and have become extinct. It's just a sad state of affairs. So the sightings of Tasmanian tigers continue to come in. Some of the stuff on YouTube is crazy. You can't even watch these people. They're nuts. There's a man named Nick Mooney, a thylacine expert. and he believes they're gone for good. He says, if they are there, I hope we never find them because we are even greedier now. And today, September 7th, is recognized as Threatened Species Day in Australia and in Tasmania. So this is really wonderful. And I sure hope that you can see this. Shake your head when I move the movie. Hopefully you'll be able to see this movie. I think you will. This is actual footage of Benjamin. And last year, for Threatened Species Day, somebody colorized the video. So you actually get to see what this animal really looked like in color. Just shake your heads if you can see it moving. Excellent. There's no sound to it. Ooh. How zoos have come along such a long way. I would want to die too if I lived in that thing.
Mm.
It's interesting because I've seen other footage of Benjamin on YouTube, and there is a one scene. It's actually quite sad because there's a guy outside the cage and he's taunting the animal to get him to try to attack him. But what's interesting about the footage is that the animal actually rises up like a kangaroo, and it's really incredible to watch. And again, it's so hard to think of this thing as a kangaroo when it looks so much like a dog. So this is the Tasmanian tiger, wolf, Thylacine, that I didn't get to see in New York. But again, wherever I travel the world, I always try to find extinct species and take pictures of them, and this is the one that I took in Paris. Again, in the Natural History Museum in Paris. It's the most extraordinary museum I've ever been in, and especially the hall that's dedicated to extinct species. They don't have that at the American Museum. You have to go and pick and choose from different galleries. But in Paris, they're all in this one dark room with spotlights on each of the animals. And it's one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had in my life is to walk into that room and realize that every single thing that's in that room is gone forever because of my species. It's pretty profound, beautifully done, and again, I took these in Paris. This is Don Colgan, the head of the evolutionary biology unit at the Australian Museum, and they've extracted the DNA from from the heart, the liver, the muscle, and the bone of this 130-year-old tiger specimen preserved in alcohol that we saw before. That's the last known Tasmanian tiger, died in 1936. And I don't know what they're going to do with that DNA. Hopefully, sooner or later, they're going to try to clone it. Museums Victoria. Very interesting specimens too, and that's the other thing, how long their backs are. And in the footage of Benjamin also, how their backs just kind of taper, just such a strange physical presence. And they're just so natty looking and flea-bitten looking. I took this picture in Oslo, in Norway, in their Natural History Museum. And just around the corner, there's a whole beautiful diorama of great auks. It's one of the most beautiful that I've ever seen. But stuffed in a corner is this guy in this ugly green box. It just seems like he deserves so much more. This is in Austria. Leeds, England. In 1983, American media mogul Ted Turner offered a $100,000 reward for proof of the continued existence of the Tasmanian wolf. But no definitive evidence had been found, so he got to pocket his money. This is in the Otago Museum in New Zealand. I kind of like this one. Looks like it's been sitting in the sun a little bit. And then, of course, like everything, once it's gone, then we revere it and we love it, and it's in all sorts of art and everything. And this is a painting by one of my favorite artists, Walton Ford, an American who's born in Westchester County and has a studio up in the Berkshires right now. And I just adore his paintings of extinct species, especially. Thylacines were mysterious, terrifying phantoms in the minds of Tasmanian settlers. This is a quote from Walton Ford. I wanted to create a delirious image that suggested the Thylacines' doom. The painting could be interpreted as the hallucination of either the man or the beast. I love Walton Ford's. This is a triptych. Absolutely beautiful. The Undead. Another Walton Ford. This is from Joseph Wolf, 1848. British. But this is from the New Yorker magazine. So even up to now, and there are quite a few. Some of these I'm sad I don't have. This is beautiful. It's so beautiful. Matthew Cogswell with the bounty, the animal sitting on the bounty poster. I want to count those stripes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, he gave him like 17 or 18, but that's okay. It's still fabulous. The tiger wolf and the wombat. And then you can get tattoos. Come on, Nancy, let's do it. Go get some ink together. Rather pretty. Painful, but pretty. I love this one. This is 1817. This reminds me so much of George Stubbs, when George Stubbs was painting things like kangaroos. And they were just, George Stubbs, keep your day job, George. Stick to horses. Because Stubbs is one of the greatest equestrian artists that ever lived. His kangaroos, not so much. They're kind of funny looking, but this is very funny. I'd love to own this one. That one and the platypus, the Thylacine attack and the platypus, I'd love to own those. Crazy people. Again, modern, 2018. This is interesting. It's a poster series, a reconstructed poster featuring the thylacine created to call attention to the loss of other species across the globe. And I actually have a metal sign of the one for the dodo that is hanging in my bathroom. As I said, there's a lot of guilt in Tasmania, I feel. That's why this animal shows up everywhere. This is the Royal Society of Tasmania medal. I guess when you're somebody wonderful and you receive this award, it has the thylacine on it. I know the author on the right. Jessica LaRue, I believe her name is. Love her work. I don't know the left. S.M. Bittler is the artist on that. It's absolutely beautiful. This is my shower curtain, Nancy. This is my shower curtain. John Gould's beautiful painting print of Tasmanian tigers, the Thylacine, is my shower curtain. And if they had this in plus size, I would probably be wearing it. It's just incredible how these things become just larger than life. Who did this? I can't see. And some of this is Ronell Reed. I have no idea what it means, but it's awfully pretty. And of course, you'd never see a thylacine sitting in a tree with a magpie, but it's pretty. That's a good one. Eric Pitchford, an American born in 1997. So right up until now, this animal is still an icon, as well it should be. And of course, they appear on many postage stamps, even in Romania. And on the centenary of the Federation of Tasmania, their 20-cent coin. This is the University of Tasmania's ceremonial mace. And it obviously is surrounded by Tasmanian tigers, Thylacines. It was completed in 1990, and it's used in graduation ceremonies and other formal occasions. The university's mission statement reads, "The university is committed to the creation, preservation, communication, and application of knowledge. It will express this commitment through scholarship, which is international in scope, but which also reflects the distinctiveness of Tasmania and serves the needs of its community." I'd like to walk around my bathroom holding that. It's beautiful. These are gorgeous. You know, anatomically, maybe not so correct, but boy, are they pretty. And I think they might be digital. I'm not so sure that these are actual paintings, but the artist is Joseph McGlennon. Joseph McGlennon. They're absolutely stunning. 2018, Kate O'Hara. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't include, you know where it is, Nancy,
No.
the thylacine that is on that carousel in Paris that they wouldn't let me ride. Only children allowed. I was fit to be tied. Can you imagine that, chasing these things all over the world and they won't let me ride the carousel? So what would happen if the thylacine were successfully cloned? Would this be what would happen to it? Walk it around on a leash like a dog? Kind of a funny idea, but one that, since we covet things so much and want to own them, would probably happen. Of course, cricket, a big sport in Tasmania. Tasmanian Tigers, the name of their team, and their logo, Cricket Tasmania. This is also another one of the logos for the Tasmanian cricket team. Again, I feel it's total guilt. So, a record price was paid at Armitage Auctions in Australia on Saturday, the 7th of September, 2002. Remember, the 7th of September is Threatened Species Day in Australia, and here this piece goes up. Lot 30, a rare Tasmanian tiger skin buggy rug, not filled with bugs, you know what it means, like a buggy that, horse and buggy, was sold for $206,000. It was made up of 8 tiger skins and measured 3.5 feet by 4 feet. A rare Tasmanian tiger skin that day also sold for $51,000. So, we want it. We'll pay a lot of money for it just because nobody else can get their hands on it anymore. And, again, what is just so heart-wrenching for me with this animal is that there was it was like a genocide. They made up lies about it, uh, and they just wanted to annihilate it for no reason whatsoever. This animal was completely harmless, and again was hunted until it became extinct. Such a pretty picture.
Mm.
So we'll never see them again. And I just want to thank you so much. Please come to visit us at White Memorial. We would love it. We're your neighbor up the road in Litchfield. And we have a beautiful museum, nature museum. We have a gorgeous wildlife sanctuary with 4,000 acres and 40 miles of hiking trails and family camping in the summer and all sorts of wonderful programming for adults and children. You can always go on our voluminous website, whitememorialcc.org, to check it out. And again, Nancy, I am so sad that I can't speak to you, but I am so grateful that you had me back to do this presentation and to do the entire series. And it is really sad news, but it's something that I feel also our children need to know about. And there are wonderful children's books about extinction where you can finesse your way into the mind of a child without alarming them and scaring them, and teach them, because now it always begins with children. This is where conservation begins, and where respect for nature begins. You can't hold information back like this because it is like too difficult. This is an adult program tonight, but there are ways of getting this message across to children. And again, it won't end until we start with kids and teach them now, when they're really young, that, don't learn from our mistakes. Or learn from our mistakes. Don't do what we did. Don't let history repeat itself. And yet to this day, it just continues on and on and on. I mean, extinction of species is still something that is a real problem. And we certainly do have laws now and agencies that are here to protect animals, but they still disappear. And, again, I think that's very sad. I think until humans realize that we share this planet, we don't own this planet, and we're not God, until we realize that, all of us, and we have respect for everything that lives in this tapestry, then, we're always going to be facing some poor animal with a plight of extinction. So, thank you very, very much.
And
And your 10-year-old is listening. God bless you. I'm glad. 10 years old. That's my favorite age to teach. I love you guys because you're cool kids, but you're kind of adult too. You have like a lot of adult questions, and that's why I love teaching children that age. So I'm really glad that that he's here tonight. Thank you. And if anybody has questions in chat, I'm going to try to scroll up. I'm really sorry about the audio tonight.
actually, Gerri, I think you're the only one who's having trouble with audio. So,
Yeah, people do feel cool, Dan, about any wild animal. I mean, crazy. They did not climb trees. And have I been to Tasmania? No, but it's on my bucket list. I really want to go. I really want to go. But I've got so many places ahead of it. It's there. I know exactly where I'm going to stay. I need to find somebody who will drive me because, they drive on the opposite side of the road. I'm too scared to do that. I just don't think I have the mental capacity to do it. What's the story behind the photo with the people in the woods bush? I think I know which one you're talking about. There was just a bunch of people assembled after a hunt. And I don't know if you saw in the beginning, in the very front of the foreground of the slide, there was a dead thylacine in front of them. So they had a big hunt that day.
mhm.
Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, photos reminiscent of bison kills. There's another animal that we pulled it from the brink of extinction. Others didn't have that. Like the ivory-billed woodpecker is another species that they believe could be around. There's actually a super documentary called Ghost Bird about the ivory-billed woodpecker, and people, again, that believe that it's still around. We don't know. Wolves in the West, exactly. Deliberate lies to get rid of them. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Thanks for the questions and for the comments and for all of you showing up. And, you know, again, I don't know when we'll see each other again, Nancy, but it's always a pleasure. And I hope that I can, you know, maybe conjure up. I started reading about this incredible extinct animal called a stellar sea cow. I mean, I could do the series forever, and I'm not even going to. I went down a rabbit hole. Right now I'm studying about eels. Eels are one of the most incredible creatures in the world. And I have a feeling that I am going to have for the rest of my life a very strong relationship with eels and promoting eels and the plight of the eel, which of course, you know, they're becoming rarer and rarer, and there's a battle to try to get them in the Endangered Species Act, and a lot of people are saying no. And I believe, after having read 2 books over the course of 3 days, the book of the, oh, look what we have here, the Book of Eels by Patrick Svensson. But the one that I believe is better is by a local yokel, Eels, by James Prosek. James lives in Easton, Connecticut. And when you read these books, your heart is going to go out to this creature. It's just incredible. But I learned about the stellar sea cow by reading Patrick Svensson's book. So there are all sorts of animals. I could just continue on and on and on with the series until the cows come home and keep you guys depressed all the time. But, you know, there are great stories, and stories that shouldn't be forgotten, stories that need to be told. So thank you all so very much, and I hope we'll see you again sometime. And yeah, I hope you all stay safe and well and have a great weekend. It's almost here.
Thank you, Gerri. I know that you can't hear me, but I want to thank all of you for being here, if it was just for one or if it was for the whole series. It's been really an interesting, eye-opening series. And I will tell you that all of them, there were 4 of them in total, they're all, this one will be going up in a couple of days, but the other 3 are already on Milford Library's YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to go there and you can take a look at them, they're all there. Thank you all for coming. It was a great talk. As always, Gerri always brings a little bit of herself into it, and I find that really, really heartwarming. So we're going to say good night, and thank you again for all of you for coming.